Sourcing where control actually begins. Hello, everyone. My name is Tessa. I'm here to introduce you to our host of the Futurist Mindset Show. That's Reagan Rodriguez. Reagan is a futurist who teaches stratosphere wealthy legacy families how to become impact investors. Hi, Reagan. How are you?
I'm doing better than I deserve. How about yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. And I'm
Awesome.
excited. Let's chat. I know you have lots of notes and we're ready to dive in today. So.
Yeah. I got some feedback from people that watched last week. And so then we talked about towards the tail end last week that I would go into sourcing. So let's I'll kind of go into that for those that didn't watch last week, because last week we went over the cash protocol. And just to remind you, for those of you that, or those that didn't watch last week's show, it's a system that's been forged over years of real deals, or with real operators, with real transactions. And cash stands for control, align, structure, and harvest. This is how companies actually change hands. And they do so quietly. They do so efficiently and without begging banks for permission. I also talked about that you've got to execute as well. So I call this my faith-backed by action rule. Because here's the hard truth, the system only works if you deliver. So you must execute the fix. You then need to add real value. Because as I went over last week, and Tessa, would you be so kind as to place this on the screen? I mentioned that no value equals no leverage. No leverage equals no ownership. And then no ownership equals no capital event. I went over that last week, and it's important to reiterate it again, because I'll assure you that if you operate in what I refer to as that top 1% of the people who do actually do what they say they're going to do. So let's move on to sourcing, where control actually begins. Every capital event you've ever created is going to be the same way. It's not going to be with a spreadsheet or a pitch deck, and it's not with money. It begins with a conversation. And this is where most people quietly break themselves. They walk into meetings carrying outcome pressure. They worry about the deal. They maybe worry about saying the wrong thing or whether this one deal counts. So let me collapse that tension for you right now. When you sit down with a business owner, you do not have a deal, guys. Okay? And when that conversation ends, my experience has been that only one of three things is going to happen. Number one, you're going to identify a legitimate opportunity. Or number two, you've sharpened your understanding for that next one. Or the third option is that you've simply met another human being. And now we're going to move on. Those are the only outcomes. And here's the part most people miss. You do not control which one occurs, but what you do control is your presence, your composure, and your authority. Boom. Here's what I refer to as the invisible test. Business owners can sense when there's uncertainty instantly. And it's not because they're brilliant. It's similar to you, Tessa. You live inside decision pressure every day. So if you show up to that meeting anxious or eager or outcome attached, it's going to leak. And what I've noticed is leakage kills then the leverage. So that's why your first objective in sourcing is not to close the deal. Your first objective is crossing what I call your first control event. This is the moment where a theory becomes personal truth, not somebody else's case study, not a framework that's on paper. We're talking about a real agreement with a real structure around a real conversation on authority to control. And once that happens, I've then noticed everything changes. I've noticed for myself, your tone slows, your certainty stabilizes, and your conversations are, you've stopped trying to impress, and opportunities begin to appear faster. And it's not because the market changed, but maybe it's because you did. Mm-hmm. I personally circled this runway for, I think it was a little over 14 months. It's a little over a year. And then when I completed my first control event, it was then about a week or two later that without any effort, the second opportunity appeared from a completely different direction. And here's what I realized at that point. It was not a coincidence. It was the confidence that was compounding. Here's the other thing I realized. You need to think about what your only job really is at the beginning, because early on, your assignment is very simple. It's just to have conversations. Put yourself in rooms. I don't care whether they're physical or digital. Just get into rooms where other business owners exist. Talk to them about their business. Ask maybe a little more about the industry, or maybe what challenges they go through on a daily basis. Here's another question I like to ask: their future horizon. The important thing here, guys, is ask open-ended questions and listen. And when you do listen, do so carefully. When you understand someone's reality deeply enough, you're going to notice that solutions surface naturally. I've noticed that you then don't have to force a pitch. You earn the right to one. Another thing that I've learned early on, all sourcing is, guys, it's just marketing. So let's instead kind of strip that mystique. If closing a deal is a sale, then sourcing is simply marketing. There isn't anything exotic about that. If you already run a business, similar to you, Tessa, you build websites for people, or maybe you're watching this and you do some consulting, or maybe you sell a specific service. If so, then you already understand this. Whatever method it is that you use to attract clients can then be adapted to attract that business owner, that founder or operator. The difference is the conversations are going to be deeper. The time horizon is going to be longer, and the upside is going to be asymmetric. Inside the Fifth Avenue Underground Club, we've seen many methods work, but what I've noticed is there are two that dominate. Method one is LinkedIn. Another word for that is a controlled outreach. If you use LinkedIn correctly, it can be like this precision instrument, because you could use Sales Navigator to identify those specific industries that you're looking for, or maybe that the founder-led companies, or maybe you can also identify the businesses that are above survival scale. A common mistake is targeting companies that are a little too small. And if the business is too small, you're not acquiring leverage. You just inherited a job. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when you do that, you're going to notice you're going to be underpaid, overworked, and you're structurally fragile, if you will. So that's why I don't call that a deal. So your baseline filter should be clear. It should be revenue within 1 to 10 million, maybe 10 plus employees as a rough proxy, and make sure that the founder is still involved. When you do that, you're going to find companies that are too small for private equity, and they're big enough to matter for you, though. And quietly, they're trapped. I also want to talk about geography because I get a lot of people that they'll say, hey, Regan, I want to live here, but I want to buy a business over here. Or I'm going to move over here, or I want to stay here, but I want to buy a business in Michigan. I know someone like that because she said she wants to be near her niece and nephew that are in Michigan, but this person lives in California. Well, the cash protocol includes initial operational things, so geography is going to matter. Either you can reach the business or you have a trusted operator on the ground. And this is not about convenience, it's about execution. And it's also about integrity because where control is easiest is a large percentage of control first acquisitions seem to occur in more of the blue collar services. So this is why I said it's going to be easier if you go after an HVAC business or a mechanical or electrical business or a cleaning business. These businesses are often profitable. They're essential, right? They're needed. But they're also poorly systematized, which makes it difficult to then sell. You can go after white-collar businesses, whether it's an agency or a software company, or maybe some other type of a professional service. They are going to be cleaner, but they're also going to be more competitive. Mm-hmm. Neither one of the two is superior. Your edge lies where your value is clearest. The other thing I've noticed is that focus, if you're more focused, you're going to create more momentum. Your first control event, you want to remove any kind of friction. This is not the time to prove versatility. I have spent, look, if you've spent your career as an architect, then why don't you go after architectural firms? If you've operated in logistics, well, gosh, why don't we just start there? And why do I recommend that? Because rapport accelerates when you speak the language. Mm-hmm. And you understand the economics and you recognize the pain instantly. That's where rapport is going to be your currency. You also want to remove any obstacles. And I do that on purpose. So when you have your first control event, remove resistance. One of the easiest ones to eliminate is this question. Do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? Authority is going to build trust faster than intelligence ever will. So make sure that that deck is stacked in your favor. Let's go over method 2. It's the letter. It's referred to as that baby boomer strategy because for older business owners, it seems like nothing beats a physical letter because it's simple, it's direct, it's personal. You're then able to position yourself as an investor in the sector. You're writing to them personally. You are not hiding behind a corporate facade. And depending on jurisdictions, you can also access the company address, maybe even the director details, and maybe even home address in some regions. Write to that person is what I'm going to recommend, not the company. And the reason why letters work, the response rates are going to be lower. They are, but they're hotter. So when someone responds to a letter, they're ready to talk. Meetings happen fast. Decisions then accelerate. That consistency is now going to build up your pipeline quietly. Where most deals come from for me, though, I'm going to talk about me because I can only teach what I've done. And LinkedIn is not the way I've done it. I haven't done it that way. About 95% of the control first deals originate from my existing contacts, or maybe a live event I go to, or the person that I sit to the left or to the right of on a plane, or a chance meeting at a coffee shop. That's usually where I meet people. And I'm going to recommend to always be sourcing. Every entrepreneur that you meet is a potential node. If not for them, then for someone they know. The final frame for you guys is persistence. I like to say that riches respond to habitual action, not intensity. Sourcing is not a campaign, it's a posture. I want you to feed the pipeline, protect your leverage, and let the opportunities fall out naturally. That's how control is built. I think that's it, Tessa. Next week, we'll go into authority framing. Heck, I just might get into the cash pitch. In other words, where the conversations convert.
Oh,
So
wow.
stay tuned until next week. And Tessa, before you close us out of here, any comments you want to mention? I know you were taking down a lot of notes.
I was. I love you mentioned that your tone slows down when it like kind of stabilizes, your confidence stabilizes, and the way you sound changes, and that's 100% something they pick up on. I've heard that a lot when you want to do a power position, you slow down, which if you're nervous or you're feeling like it's that your 3 outcomes, that you mentioned, if you feel the pressure to close it, you can't slow down because you're trying to, win it. So I just love all of these were great, no matter what industry, no matter what position you're in, they're so good. But I think that's important to really take the pressure off yourself. And it's almost an interview to be able to work with you, essentially. They should want to be with you, to work with you. So thank you for mentioning that. But I did take tons of notes because I do think it's all good information, how to find the people, how to structure your conversations with them. So I'm excited about next week's topics too. Thank you so much, Reagan. So much information in these.
You're quite welcome.
And if you do want to find out more information, you can go to the website, 5thaavc.com, or hit the bell to get notifications so you find out more and you don't miss next week's show for sure. So thank you and have a great week.